gamers. Today, we're gonna do a new type of tier list. We're going to do a tier list for which civilization has the best farm, explain you guys the bonuses that the civ has, and also just kind of order them in best to worst. And if you guys enjoyed this type of civ tier list, we're also going to do like a civ tier list, which civ has the best infantry, which civ has the best cavalry, which civ has the best, ranged units, best siege, best defensive buildings. The content is endless. And also I thought about, if you guys like this one, to do another one where it's like which civ has the best passive gold or passive resource incomes, if that makes sense. So like Malian with cows, Atri relics, and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm gonna do no bonuses. Okay, so I'm gonna do like from best to worst, and then I'm gonna do the no bonuses at the end, which is the civs that have no farm bonuses. So this civ tier list again is not how good the civ is, it's their farming specifically. So we're gonna start with Malians, and we're talking about farms, not food. Malians has, as a civ, has no bonuses for farms. Obviously there are upgrades in like mills, but that's something that every civ has. They do have cattle, but that's for another time. So we're gonna put them in the no bonuses, which is kind of neutral, neutral starting point. Then we got the Ottomans, which is the same thing. They do have H2 landmark with berries, but that's not what we're talking about here. The next one is Delhi, same thing as the other two. Pretty cool civ, free upgrades and all that, but they don't have any bonuses. And the last civ that does not have any bonuses is French. So these four civs in Age of Empires 4 do not have any economic bonuses for their farms that are like unique or make them gather faster and stuff like that. Obviously Delhi has in House of Learning, which is H3 landmark, they have an upgrade that gives them +5 carry capacity, but that's more so on the villagers and not on the farms itself. Now obviously I can see chat mentioning Mongols. Mongols doesn't have farms, but I am going to include them into this because we're not going to just exclude them. So pastures from Mongols are basically farms for other civs, so I'm going to compare them to how the farms go. And let's get started. The best one by far, without a doubt, is the most obvious one. The best farming civilization in AoE 4 is English, and there's multiple reasons for it. First of all, their farms in Imperial provide gold as well, which is obviously something that is very big and should be mentioned. But not only that, as you can see here, they have farms that are 50% cheaper to construct, which also plays a very, very big role. And then farms near mill gather 15, 20, 25, and 30% faster per age. So once you're in Imperial, basically, your farms are 50% cheaper. I mean, they're 50% cheaper in Dark Age as well. 30% faster gathering, and they do have the unique upgrade for the farms, which is for them to provide gold, which simply makes them the best farming civ in the game. Like those, just the gold part would probably make them the best, but also the farms being cheaper allows English to never need to move out on the map, and is part of the reason why English is so strong. Every other civ needs to go out on a map, get deer, get maybe boar, get berries, and then later on transition to farms. But English, because their farms are 50% cheaper, they can just kind of go sheep into farms straight away and ignore deer, ignore berries, and ignore just map control completely. So, with that being said, the best farming civ is English. The next one we will be talking about is Mongol. Like I said, Mongol has pastures, they don't have farms, but pastures are actually very, how do I put this? They're okay in the early game, but I feel like they are very bad in the late game. So I'm going to put it at C tier. Now, I do want to say that Mongol, their gathering rate on the sheep is fine. Now, there are weaknesses to it. So, for example, for English, you put your farms around your TCs or on your keeps, and that's great. You can put a farmland there, farmland here, and you're good. With Mongols, you cannot really spread your pastures, and this comes because from not being able to construct walls. So because you cannot construct walls, whenever you play against Mongol, you will always notice that they put billion pastures on the same spot under your main TC, and in the late game you have like 50 or 60 workers there. So in order to shut down food economy for other civs, you gotta, go around the map, find farms, farm here, farm there, and you do a little bit of damage. Versus Mongol, you know where the food is, and not only some food, but all their food. Another problem with pastures is, they can get boosted a little bit production by Uvu, but it's not that big. They're pretty expensive. They're 150. You can't like slowly add pastures. They cost a big chunk of wood, even though one pasture is obviously better than one farm. And another problem is when, if you have 3 farms or 80 farms, it doesn't really matter with any other civ because the farmers are not going to collide with each other. The problem with pastures is because all your pastures are on the same spot, in the late game, if you have like 60 villagers on sheep, they're gonna go around each other. They might start killing sheep. Like if you don't have enough pastures, they might start killing sheep. Sometimes there's a problem of you having too many villagers per pasture. So then there's a lot of idle time, which all of that does not exist with farms. So as you can see in this video, I'm not just comparing gathering rates, but also how viable those things are and what they provide and how easy they are to use and everything else. So I'm gonna have to give Mongols a C tier. You can move them though. If you've ever moved pasture in your life, it's pain. Every time you move them, you gotta put them down again, and then you gotta re-rally point them again. So not my favorite, I gotta say. Not my favorite. Not to mention, if you play against Chinese and fire lancers arrive, you can lose 60 workers in 2 seconds. What about improved upgrades? It doesn't matter. The gather rates are just not as good as the other civs. You can try this for yourselves, guys. Get all the upgrades with like English for farms and get all the upgrades for pastures, and you will see it's a lot less food per minute. Not to mention the gold. All right, the next one we will be talking about is Chinese granaries. Now, I am gonna need another add a row below. The next one we'll talk about is Chinese, and we're gonna put it into C tier. So China, some people might think it's higher, but the bonus that China has for their gathering is the granary, which is 10%. So whenever you put a granary, I'm gonna show it in the game. Whenever you put a granary, all the farms within the circle will be gathering 10% faster. Now, you can also supervise Chinese farms, even though that sounds cool. So if you put 3 granaries and you put a bunch of farms, you can get 30% increased gathering rate on your farms with China, which is great, right? It's not bad. And I would not advise using Imperial Official to supervise food, but you can also do that for another 20%, even though it's not really efficient in any way, because you don't know which granary the villagers are going to be dropping the food off. So why do I rate China C tier? Well, there's a couple of issues with that. First thing, it's not as easy to transition to farms with China like it is with English. It is better than Mongols, but it suffers from a similar problem, which is in order to get the 30%, you need to put your granaries next to each other. So all your food is at the exactly same spot. And that is a big weakness. Now, you can spread out granaries, so you can put one there, one here, one there, but then you only get 10% extra per granary, so you're not utilizing the full bonus. So you kind of have an option with China. You're either going to put them all together and then make yourself kind of like vulnerable, or you're going to, spread them out fully and not get as effective bonus. So the Imperial Official supervising it is not really a thing, because you don't do that on the granaries, because you would rather have them supervise wood, gold, and stone, and then have one guy go around and collect gold. Now, there are upgrades, like Salami's mentioning, from the upgrade in Age 4 landmark, where it increases your gathering rate. I think it's 5% per dynasty reached, right? And also they have a dynasty that increases their movement speed. But movement speed for farms is actually one of the least important upgrades to get. So like wheelbarrow and Yuan dynasty that increases the movement speed, doesn't actually improve farming that much unless you're like running too far away. So even if you have 5% per dynasty reach, so let's say you reach Song dynasty, you had, I don't know if it even counts for the first dynasty that you start with, but I don't think it does. So you can have a total of 15% bonus, which, and let's say you have 10% from a granary, that's 25%. English has 30% just without doing anything. It does? Okay. English has 30% without doing anything. And in order to reach that point with China, you need to get to dynasties. So for a total of 20% bonus, every time you reach a dynasty, you get 5% extra. You need to go through to build all the landmarks. And you need to have farms under granary. And if you want to go up to 30%, you need to have all granaries around each other. Which, in my opinion, is good. They have enough food income. They have great food income. But at that point in the game, this is at the end of the day what it comes down to. At that point in the game with China or Delhi or Ottoman, if you have like 50 farms and you got 3 granaries and you got all these upgrades, you're going to have too much food anyway. So it kind of doesn't matter, right? But for English, you get these things a lot earlier. For example, you get it in Dark Age, Feudal Age, Castle Age, and they're passive. You don't have to do anything. The next one we will be talking about is Holy Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire is also in a unique spot, actually. I mean, all these civs are. But I'm going to have to put HRE as B. And this is why. So China does have, just by a little bit, better gathering rate. If you would have 3 granaries, not on every single farm, but some farms would have 30% increased gathering rate, and then you would have 20% from the dynasty. So that goes up to 50. I don't know how they do the math on that one, but not every farm will be up to 50%. Meanwhile, if you're HRE, if you put farms under chapel, you can fit like 40-50 farms under chapel to make sure they're buffed. And you can also get an upgrade that further increases the 40% gathering rate to by another 10%, which is already insane. Now, it does suffer from the same thing. You have to put all your farms in the same spot if you want to be, all under the influence of chapel. But the difference compared to with China and HRE, even though their gathering rates are very, very similar, the difference is HRE can get farms in feudal quite easy, and they just get valued throughout the whole game. Like I said, it's a lot harder to transition to farms as China compared to English and HRE. And HRE can just do it from feudal and slowly start building up because of how the civ works. And, having chapel and woodline early on allows you to get farms early on, which kind of scales your economy much, much better. And once you do the farms, you're kind of done. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to stress about it. And once you get upgrades to get another 10%, pretty much your whole food economy is going to be like 40% boosted and then 10% extra with the upgrade. Very nice. HRE. Love farming. The next one we'll be talking about is Abbasid. Abbasid we're going to put into A tier, and there are a few different reasons for it. If this was previous patch, I would probably put HRE in A tier and Abbasid in B tier, but there has been some changes, and I will specifically talk about economic wing. For sure is A tier. If you don't go economic wing, maybe it's like same with HRE, maybe it's still better, I am not sure. But for those that don't know, Abbasid in the economic wing has an upgrade that I have no idea what it's called, and the upgrade reduces the cost of your economic buildings. So it makes your farm cost like 50 something wood, and it's kind of like budget English. It's not as cheap as English. Fertile Crescent, right? So it's not as cheap as English, but you do get cheaper farms, which plays a big deal in how early you can transition to them. And also their gathering rates are quite insane on their own. So I'm going to go into the game just to show you all the upgrades, because I don't know all the numbers from the top of my head, and also I don't know all the names. So House of Wisdom has, if you go economic wing, you unlock Fertile Crescent, which reduces the cost of economy buildings and houses by 25%. This includes farms. So someone in the Psycho said in the chat, it's 56.25 wood. which, by the way, might not seem like a big deal, but you can transition to farms as Abbasid in kind of like late feudal, early castle, where with other civs it's a lot more rough. The reason why it's easier for Abbasid, not because of the reduced cost, but because they also have higher gathering rate because of Golden Age. So in Tier 1 Golden Age, they have villager gathering rate plus 15% for all resources, and you don't have to pay anything for this. The moment you have 10 buildings connected with House of Wisdom, you will get 15% gathering rate for farms and for wood, which allows you in return to build farms faster, right? So instead of, with this bonus, instead of farms costing 56 wood, it's like they're technically cheaper than that because you are gathering wood 15% faster. And then in the Imperial, this goes up to 20% gathering rate. So what do they have? They have 20% gathering rate, passive. They have cheaper farms. They have faster gathering rate for wood, which in return allows you to get farms faster, even faster than you normally would. They also have agriculture, which improves villagers' gathering rate from farms by another 15%. They also have the mill upgrades, just like any other civ, where you can boost your gathering rates. And last but not least, they have improved processing, which also drops off 8% more resources. With all that being said, Abbasid has insane food income, like from farms. Absolutely insane. There's actually been some kind of like meta shifts a little bit where Abbasid players are actually transitioning to farms a lot quicker. Not necessarily as fast as English, where you go like just sheep into farms, but people have been skipping berries or even deer sometimes. I've noticed in my games recently to go earlier farms. Because once you set up these farms, they just give you so much income. And even if you don't get any big upgrades, like in feudal or castle, you will notice the food income being way better than to some of the other civs. Especially if you have like 50 workers on it with all these upgrades, you're going to have like insane food income going into it. Another thing that like kind of benefits all of this is if you do go ecoing with Abbasid, you usually have multiple TCs. Again, higher gathering rates, easier to transition to farms. But just on paper, their farming economy is absolutely insane. And I would probably even put them, I would put them better than English farms in terms of food gathering rate. But again, English farms provide gold in Imperial, so you kind of can't beat that. Gold's pretty good in this game. Even though that's recently been nerfed, it is still very, very good. And just having like 600 passive gold as English is very much noticeable in the late game. So yeah. Last civ that I actually, I'm a professional streamer, Kappa. I actually forgot that Rus exists, so I haven't even given Rus a lot of thought. So I'm gonna do it now because that's what professionals do. You can improvise. I had my little notepad over here, and I didn't put Rus. I put the other civ stuff. So Rus farms cost as much as any other farm, so that's not different. Now there are some downsides to Rus and some benefits. The downside is you can make farms around TCs, right? That's amazing. But if you were to make farms next to your keep, you have to build hunting cabin, which costs 100 wood. So some of your farms are, let's say, normal price, but some of your farms are a little bit more expensive because of the fact that your mill, which is the hunting cabin, costs 50 extra wood. So basically, whenever you build 2 hunting cabins for farms, you can fit like a farm and a little bit extra. Now, this is not the biggest deal because Rus with their wooden fortress or Kremlin landmark have 20% extra wood drop off, but it is something to mention, right? Maybe they kind of wooden fortress bonus is probably better. Now, what bonuses do they have? They have no upgrades in the game that improve their farming except their hunting, which is bounties. So in tier 1, they have 5% villager food gather rate, and this is only for food. In tier 2, they have 10% villager food gather rate, and in tier 3, they have 15% villager food gather rate. Now, this might seem really good, and it's good. It's passive. You don't gotta do anything about it. In team games, this is a lot better because you can reach 500 bounty a lot easier. In one-on-ones, realistic bounty is probably tier 2 bounty, which is 10% villager food gather rate. And if you go for, what's the landmark called? High Trade House, which spawns deer, you can get to 500, right? But going from 10 to 15% is not that big. Talking specifically about farms, having even 15% bonus on your farms is not that big of a deal. Why? Well, because English has 30% in Imperial passive without doing anything. You don't need any bounty. Your farms are just 30% better. So with that being said, if I were to compare Rus to the other civs, now I'm thinking, I feel like Rus is not... I think Rus farms are better than Mongol pastures, but they're not as good as Chinese. Maybe I would have to put it something like this. Maybe this makes more sense. I kind of like this, actually. So their farms are better than Malian, than Ottoman, than Delhi, and than French farms. They have, you know, a little bit of extra juice. I do think that because of the way pastures work, like I talked about, farms are better from Rus. Now, the real question is, are Mongol pastures better than the civs farms without any bonuses? And the answer to that, I don't know, but I feel like they're not, which is kind of funny. I think I would actually still prefer to have farms from any of these civs than have pastures because of how inconvenient and how weird they are. But if you know better, you know, feel free to run some tests and let me know. But just from a player's perspective, I would rather much just make farms and be done with it than have to like make pastures and I gotta rally them. Then the sheep are stuck, and then, you know, everyone's stuck. So that's just my preference. At the end of the day, most of these bonuses I think are, you know, once you reach super late game, like 40-50 minutes plus, you're probably gonna have too much food anyway. So it's more so how you get there, and also if, you know, it has any kind of unique upgrades. And there it is, guys. That is gonna be it from this video. If you enjoyed this one, I also would like to make one for resource collection rates. So not farms, but you know, food gather rates from the animals, from berries in the same video. Also wood gathering rates and gold/stone gathering rates in one video. Then I could do something like passive gold incomes for every civ, talk about them, explain them, and, you know, so on and so forth, and then move on to the army. So if you guys enjoy this kind of video, let me know and I will do more. If you're watching on YouTube, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out my Twitch stream. I'm probably live right now. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.